In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Kenwood RA80. Now, it's called a reverberation amplifier, but it's not strictly speaking an amplifier. It's more of an effects box. It goes between your amplifier and your music source device. And by adjusting these dials here, it adds reverberation to the music that you're listening to. Now, this is a mid-80s device. These were more popular in the 70s. This is towards the end of the reverberation craze, if it could have been a craze. I don't think that many people had them on their hi-fi. They're always a bit of a weird device to put on there. But I thought it was something worth testing out because I really wanted to know whether this reverberation effect was something that I would enjoy adding to my music. So let's have a listen. But before we get there, I just wanted to pull up the Wikipedia article to see how that defines reverberation, and it describes it as the persistence of a sound after it's been produced. Now, in my own experience, once I got the settings just right, sometimes it sounded a little bit like somebody was playing an instrument in a big hall with a wooden floor. And when I read down the article, it actually describes it like this at the bottom, so my own experience seems to match what it should sound like. Now, before we plug it in, we'll just take a quick tour around the device. So below the big screen on the top there, we've got the power on-off button. Then towards the right-hand side, a tape monitor button, because you can plug a tape machine into this one. The reverberation on-off button, that's really your main one. That's the one that turns on the effect. And then to the right, we've got reverberation recording, so we can send that effect off to the tape machine. And then we've got an effect button with two settings. And then to the right-hand side of that is an attenuator, which will knock the volume down a little bit. So looking at those two settings, according to the manual, those are classed as normal reverberation or duet effect. And then finally, on the front of the machine to the right are two controls that enable you to adjust the reverberation time and the depth of the effect. On the rear of the machine, we've got the inputs and outputs on the left-hand side, which are for your line to go into it and then back out to your amplifier, and of course your tape machine. And on the right-hand side, we've got another power point on there, so we can daisy chain power into this, and this is a multi-voltage switchable device. Now, inside there's very little to look at. The power supply is on the left, the display on the front is a sealed unit, and all the components are underneath that circuit board, which is quite difficult to get out of there. This isn't a spring reverb, it uses electronic components to perform the reverberation effect. Now, once I'd put this device into my hi-fi, the only way that sound could come through it was if it was powered and switched on. You can, of course, have it switched on without the reverberation effect, but then you don't get these nice flashing lights. Now, this display is supposed to visually indicate the depth of the reverberation effect, and that's the thing that's controlled by the far right-hand knob, and it has to be turned up quite a way to get the display to flash like this. Now, it's a little bit tricky, but I'm going to try and demonstrate the reverberation effect to you here, but please bear in mind I've got everything turned way up to the top, which is beyond where you'd normally have it. Now, clearly you wouldn't be listening to music with those dials turned all the way to the top like that. You'd adjust them to a position that made the music more towards your taste. But notice how the lights go out as I adjust the depth control down. So if you want your nice flashing lights, you're going to have that one turned quite a way up. Now, the effect definitely works better on some kinds of music than others. For example, on this acoustic number, when you switch reverb on, it makes it sound a little bit more like someone's playing it to you live, albeit in a church hall with a wooden floor. Now the other day I reviewed a graphic equalizer, and as you'd imagine there was quite a few people that turned up to say you should not listen to music through a graphic equalizer because it is changing the music away from the artist's original intention. You should always listen to music with as few objects in the audio path as possible, have the bass and treble in the centre positions, and also you should have the volume controlled by a government approved scientist. You should only listen to music that's been prescribed by the National Health. Your house should be grey, you should sit on a hard wooden chair, face the wall and spend as much time crying as possible. I mean, for God's sake, music is supposed to be a bit of fun, and if I can have more fun with it by adjusting it to suit my environment, then that's what I'm going to do. And frankly, I find it a little bit unsettling that some people think they've got an entitlement to tell a stranger how they should be listening to music within the comfort of their own home. Now you may recall at the beginning of the video I wanted to try this out for myself to see whether or not I enjoyed the reverberation effect. But I don't. If you turn it all the way up, of course, things sound very echoey, muddled, crashy. But if you turn it quite a bit lower down, things sound quite a bit better. However, if you turn it off entirely, it sounds better still. For me, everything that I played through this sounded better once I turned the reverberation off. Without the reverberation, all you've got is a box with some nice flashing lights on it. Now, normally that would be enough for me to keep it in the hi-fi, but to have those lights flashing, you have to have it run through the reverberation effect and have it turned all the way up. So it's not something that I really want to keep in there. And of course, it takes up another plug socket as well. So it's an interesting experiment, and I can see kind of why they died out, because really, to me, they don't seem to add anything to the music other than a weird echo effect that isn't very pleasant. But, you know, can't win them all. That's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.